let's kill that bass head. Alright, let's do this.
I'm on the air, we got this pockets flow. It's me and Tony on the mics, we gotta let you know of current events, little gaming, sprinkle in some entertainment. We stay humble, but our moms still think we're famous. Turn up the bass and baby, maybe let that magic flow. Our spoken word is all the things you really wanna know. Having a good time on the show, T-Bows and Matty G. Tune in and hit subscribe and join us on the FAP.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Freaking Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Bowes, and today we've got quite a wonderful guest for you to listen to, as you see him here on the screen. He's also known as Reggie in the Nickelodeon world from Danger Force, aka David C. Smalley. How are you doing today, David?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me, man.
Wonderful. It's wonderful to have you. I was doing a little, a little kind of a back research on some of your past comedy, and really, really loved it. And I got to say, one of the things I love about comedians is the fact that, of course, you can bring in everyday life into comedy. It's not just like, hey, I thought of a funny joke and I brought it up. It's comedy always revolves around your world because life is funny. And I often find it moments in my own life with because I've got two young kids, and some of the things they say is almost beyond their years. And I think one of the things I loved about one of your comedy sketches is how you're saying you're setting your kids up for life by just being an ass to them all the time, and it kind of prepares them. And it really made me laugh because I remember a while ago my daughter was very excited, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm fantastic, I'm the best, I'm the greatest." And I was just like, "Hey, you're good. You're great at what you're doing." But I had to feel like I'd be a dick, but I'd be like, I feel like I need to teach my kids that an important lesson early in life is there's always going to be someone smarter, stronger, more beautiful, more talented. So don't get too full of yourself, and
Right.
I feel like I'd rather have grounded children, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm gonna have someone come up to me one of these days and be like, "Man, you're just a dick to your kids." So
the psychologists who write all the books about this will definitely tell you that that's a mistake. But I've got living proof in my daughter. She's 17 and a half right now. She is the strongest, smartest, most well put together, most responsible, most respectful 17-year-old I have ever met in my entire life. And it's really hard to like offend her. It's really hard to break her down, And I kind of discovered by accident. I'd always just like talk to her like she was a person. I'd always just been like, if you were to just like see a close up of me going, "Hey, bro, pick your shit up." You would think I'm talking to a roommate, and then the camera pans over and it's a 4-year-old girl going, "What?" I'm like, "Bro, pick your shit up," Or she would, make her own cereal bowl, and then drop it, and the bowl would break and milk would go everywhere. And she would look at me like I'm in trouble. And I'm like, "Why are you standing there with a dumbass look on your face? Clean it up and make another bowl of cereal. Like, just unfuck whatever you fucked, and then everything's fine. Like, what are you doing?" I never talked to her like she was a baby. And then we would go around people, who didn't subscribe to that. And they would lean down and go, "Well, hello, what's your name?" And she'd look at me like, "What's this bitch's problem?" So I just got her ready for life, man. That's all it was. That's what I say. The assholes exist in the world. So I prepare my kids by being one. Some little boy's going to call my daughter a bitch one day, and she's going to go, "Is that all you got? Like, I've been a bitch since I was 11. Step it up." And it's something that's actually working out. I mean, she's a great kid, and I love her to death. So and it's good. I've often said that, I've said this on stage to audiences. I'm like, you guys come here because you think we're funny, but what we're doing is just telling you how much you make us laugh out in the real world. Like, you're the funny ones. You do the stupid shit. We just remember it and then remind you of the stupid shit you do as people, and then we all laugh together. So really, we're just observing the craziness that the audience is doing when they're not being an audience.
Yeah, it's true. And and that's what I mean, like how comedy is just around you everywhere. I mean, it could be you're walking in the middle of a Walmart, which is horrific at most times, but the just some of the things that people do, or why I used to live in an area of Ontario that it's called Trenton, Ontario, where it's kind of a small little area. It's I don't want to like bash Trenton. So it's a military town, but it smells weird because of the factories, and people just seem to kind of like lose respect for themselves. So like they're just walking around in their pajamas all the time, and how many times I would drop my kid off at school, and she'd be like, "How come they get to wear pajamas and I don't get them?" It's like, because that person doesn't have any self-respect.
Yeah.
So people out there just make me laugh all the time. So it's always it's good. It's but it's a talent. It's a talent to be able to not only see that and remember the stories, but just it's also like that narration of yourself at the same time, right? Because some of the funniest things you could see out there, you don't even have to do anything but just sit back and narrate and catch it on camera, and it would be just hilarious.
The thing is, where the hard part of comedy is going out and failing night after night, like in all seriousness, because I see something in public that I think is funny, and I have a thought about it, and I go, oh, I can word it this way, and it'll convey to the audience the funny thought I had. But I also have to keep in mind that the audience didn't see what I saw. Yeah. They're not in that room with me. They're missing so much information. So in just a matter of seconds, with as few words as possible, I have to convey that entire thing to them, or word it in such a way that those things don't matter.
Yeah.
And so you got to go up on stage with the light in your face, not really looking at anyone, and then say this brand new thought into a microphone with the expectation that they're going to laugh. They know that you think they're going to laugh. And when they don't, the entire world stops, because you're like, that was way better in the car on the way over here. Like that was you guys were going to fall out of your chairs. And now you're looking at me like I'm crazy. And then sometimes, and comedy is so subjective. Like I've done a joke. There's one joke that I have that I've probably been doing for like 3 years, and it's worked every single time. It is so spot on. It kills every time. And I did it in San Diego last month it was a crowd for about 50 people. And I did the setup, I did the punchline exactly how I always do. And it was crickets. Like nobody said a word. They were all staring at me. And I'm like, not one of you? Like what? There's that phenomenon where you're like, I'm not going to give up on the joke, but I feel like an ass with that whole hat. And then
you were at a funeral, were you?
What's that?
You wasn't at a funeral or anything, right?
I was. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. That was the clincher.
No.
Yep.
No, it was actually a comedy show. So I don't know. Wow. It's you just got to be willing to go out there and fall on your face. And
yeah.
And it's one of those things that if you just do it enough, you get comfortable with that failure, and then that comfortability makes you relax, and then the funny comes out. And that's why if you ask any professional comic, any of the big guys, the Jeff Ross, the Dave Chappelle, any of them, you pull them aside and go, any advice? All they'll tell you, get on stage, go bomb. You got to go bomb. You just got to go out there and do it. And after a while, it gets fun. I've bombed before so much that I start laughing and then talking about how much I'm bombing. And it doesn't get to me anymore. It used to really bother me, but okay. I've found the comfort,
Yeah, that's good. I don't know if I think I would probably start laughing myself, and I don't know, I'd probably laugh myself off the stage. So, but when you were saying earlier, like, oh man, that was much funnier on the drive over. I feel like that is every conversation with my wife. Like I find that like I got something great, and I come in, I'm like, hey, and I go to tell her, and then she just looks at me like I'm the stupidest human being in the world, and then I'm just like. Yep. Wow, that was so much so you have in my head.
You have a lot of experience bombing already. That's good.
Exactly, like every day.
Tough crowd. You bomb every day. You might be ready for it, man.
That's right. So I mean, was comedy one of those things you always wanted to be in? Did you? Was it just like, nah, I was working at a hardware store and then decided like, you know, you can only hit
No,
yourself with the hammer too many times?
my dad started showing me Richard Pryor tapes and Red Fox
Nice.
tapes, like 8-track,
Yeah.
when I was about 7 years old. And I think my dad was a guy who was really funny, but like he said things to me that I thought were just like common sayings, and they weren't. They were funny to me, but they were so good that I always just thought it was just like a common joke between a bunch of guys, and nobody had ever heard any of it. And he would play little pranks on me. He would plant little joke bombs in my head, shit I wouldn't get for like 7 years. He would say stuff, and then it would make me laugh. Like he told me something when I was 4 that didn't make me laugh till I was 11. He would honk. We'd be driving down the road and he would honk, and I would just look, there'd be no one around, and I'd go, what? And he'd go, I didn't want that trash can to run out in front of me. I just look at him like, is he insane or is he messing with me? And he would just do little things like that constantly kept me thinking. And he was really funny. He slammed on the brakes one time. He saw an attractive woman. He slammed on the brakes. I was probably 10. And he goes, David. And he points, and I look out the window and I go, what? He goes, her legs go all the way up to her ass. It's just like, what is wrong with you? Like, and then thinking about it as an adult, I'm like, that's hilarious that he would just make that big of a deal out of it because this woman was attractive.
Yeah.
And showing me those tapes, you know, having me watch Red Fox, having me watch Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, and not caring about language barriers or whatever. He'd have to pause the videos or pause the 8-track tapes, the audio, and just explain to me like what a crack pipe was in order for me to get the punchline, you know, because if he caught Richard Pryor on fire, he'd be like, you know, he'd pause, you see a butthole, it ain't supposed to stretch like that. It's supposed to be really tight. And I'm like, okay. And it was just so, I figured it out. And I never really, I wanted to do it. I always thought I could do it, but it just seemed, I was also in this small town in Texas and very, very poor. So it just seemed so out of reach to ever actually try it or be on stage. I never knew if I just went on stage and tried to be funny, or do you write stuff down? Do you practice? I had no clue how any of it worked. And I went on stage when I was about 22 for about 90 seconds. I got one laugh and then bailed on my entire set and didn't try it again until 2016. Yeah. And I was 36 years old when I tried again. So I hope that math is right. It doesn't sound right, but it's
pretty close.
Those are the ages. Yeah. And so when I tried again in 2016 at 36 years old, and I went, yeah, I can do this. And then my podcast was getting popular, and I was contacted by a podcast organization in Beverly Hills and said, hey, do you want to move out to LA, do your show here? I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity. So I signed a contract with them, moved to Los Angeles, and then I started getting into the comedy clubs and getting into acting, and that just spawned everything else. So now I'm like performing at the Comedy Store on a regular basis. I'm at the Laugh Factory. I'm at the Improv. I'm kind of somewhat touring. I'm planning a new tour right now. And if people want me in their town, I can give you a number they can text to vote for their city to the the tour hotline. But yeah, cool. I absolutely love it, man. It's been a dream come true already.
Amazing. Well, I mean, it definitely sounds like, sometimes it is right place, right timing. Obviously the first time around, maybe it wasn't the right place or the right time, but that's just the funny thing about life, right? And now here, you're doing some amazing things, and like I said, your comedy is fantastic. So Nickelodeon, how did this all come about? It's so funny because I think I'd only heard of, I think what is the prequel to the Danger Force? Was Harvey Danger? Is that what it was?
Henry Danger.
Henry Danger, that's what it was. Yeah. And I think I'd caught that a few episodes because my youngest started watching it. And as a parent, I sit down and I watch shows with my kids because at first I'm trying to think like, I want to spend time with them, so I'm going to do stuff they like to do. And then it turns into a parenting moment where I'm like, is this show making my kids stupid? Like, I might have to curb this one. So now I'm going to have to watch it. And then I'm just like, 10 episodes in, I'm like, is this show making me stupid? And then I'm just like, or is it really smart? So So yeah, that's kind of one of those shows that I thought was funny because here you got a grown man as a superhero, taking on his sidekicks, and then he's created a new generation of superheroes. And now you're in this. So let's talk a little bit about your character there.
Yeah, so I like to refer to it as like Deadpool for 10-year-olds. It's self-aware, it's
Mhm.
silly. It's definitely silly, but they make fun of their own silliness. They're quite progressive and liberal with the lines. They'll kind of let the characters play, and you can tell. I was an improv coach for 3 years, and you can just tell when you've been in this industry for a while when someone is acting versus when they're just improving with their cast.
Hmm.
And yeah, I got the audition, and I've got a little bit of a somber, serious story behind the audition if you want to get into that. Kind of
Yeah,
some
sure.
things going on to me personally. It's
Yeah,
not very funny, but I can definitely talk about where I was in that moment when I got the audition in a second. But
sure.
um, I get the audition and I go through with it, and it was one of those things where I'd never heard of the show. I'd heard of Henry Danger,
Mhm.
but the audition said Danger Force, and it was the first season that it was coming out. And so I'd never heard of it. And apparently there had been a few episodes released, but Henry was still they were trying to do this like I don't really know how to even describe it. It was kind of like a crossover of
Mhm.
the original show and a new show that didn't exist yet, but they were kind of working in these new characters
Yeah.
to take over for Henry because he's over 20 at this point. He'd kind of outgrown the role,
Yeah.
and so the idea was to have a kid superhero. So I did a little bit of research on it and figured out who was who in order to do my audition. I did the audition all wrong, by the way, for any aspiring actors out there thinking you've got to get every single thing right. The audition process was I had to walk up and say, I knock on this door or whatever, they open the door, and I say who I'm from or where I'm from or what I'm doing, and they say, "See, I told you it wasn't." The next line is, "See, I told you they weren't a bunch of criminals," and then I go, "We're a bunch of criminals." But the way it was worded, I thought the person who said that was like my partner, right? Because it said I
Mhm.
walked up with a group of people. So I thought I knock on the door, they open it, I say who I am, and then my sidekick goes, "See, I told you not a bunch of criminals." And I go, "We're a bunch of criminals." And I look at my guy and I do. So that's how I did the audition. It was all wrong. And so for actors out there that are going, I need to know this in order to do no, you don't. If you have the right energy, I think an acting coach told me one time, wrong and strong is better than right and light. So if you're strong and you commit to whatever it is, they can tell that you can do it when you have the information. Turns
Yeah.
out there were two kids on the other side of the door. I knock on the door, they open it, I say who I am, and the girl says to the guy, "See, I told you they weren't a bunch of criminals." And I go, "We're a bunch of criminals." Totally. And then she's like, "What? You got to be kidding me." And there's this big laugh from the audience. So uh yeah, my character is basically just the leader of a criminal softball team, and we have three different groups of criminals, and I was just the speaker for it. And their little scientist that works with the superhero
Mhm.
stole our scoreboard to keep score of how many criminals each kid was catching in the episode. And
That's funny.
so it's a little bit ironic. Then we show up to get our own scoreboard back, and we all go to jail for just being criminals. And then he wins because they use our scoreboard to count us being arrested and caught by the good guys. So it's a silly thing. And if you watch that episode, you'll see that we just when the 30 criminals come walking into the school to be arrested, it's just me and five other people over and over and over in different t-shirts and hats.
That's
So
really
it's all
funny.
fast forwarded, and we all just change. We would like squat down and we would walk different, and they sped it up to make it really fast. So they're not even trying to hide the fact. Like you can see me walk through there 3 or 4 or 5 different times. It's so funny, but they don't even try to hide the fact that they're being silly, and I loved it. It was a great time on set. The fact that they named my character is a strong hint that it's coming back.
Mhm.
I've heard some grumblings that it might. I really hope it does, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great cast to work with. The director was phenomenal. The writer was phenomenal. I was improvising some stuff during the rehearsals, the first 3 days of rehearsal,
Mhm.
and the writer is watching the rehearsals, and based on some things I improv, he would add lines that I came up with. He would add lines to the script.
Oh, wow.
And certain places where I would pause and it would get a laugh from the audience that was watching the rehearsal,
Mhm.
he would add some of that in, and sometimes they would take it out, and they had me shoot one with improv, one exactly how it was shot, and then they can cut and paste and use kind of a variety of what they want to use.
Yeah.
So it is an amazing experience. I
Very
can't
cool.
wait to go back. I really hope I get to soon.
It's always really interesting seeing kind of that or hearing about it, in this case, the magic behind the movie or shows, right? I mean, you often see things and you never really get to see the true humor behind things, or the fact that that was actually a total mistake, but they put it in anyways because it was so funny. And it's one of the things I really like. But it's funny talking about the magic of movies and television. Have you ever watched like a 120 hertz television, where it moves so smooth, it kind of looks like there's just an actor behind the pane of glass of your TV?
Oh no, I haven't. I've
Yeah.
seen some new shots. The NFL is doing there's one camera that the NFL is using. I don't know if you're into football, but there's one camera on the field
Mhm.
that just looks way different from every other camera, and it looks like the guys are just on the other side of my screen. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty
It's really,
incredible.
but it's really
Maybe
weird at
that's
the
similar to
same
what you're talking
time.
about.
Yeah, it's really weird because sometimes the refresh rate of televisions are so odd that the higher end ones, when you watch an actor, like a perfect example, there was I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and Johnny Depp's stumbling across through the sand, and it literally looked like Johnny Depp on a sandy stage kicking sand and walking. Like it didn't like, it almost completely destroyed the magic of
Mhm.
movie, that I was like, I kind of just, it's almost like I'm just watching them rehearse for, like it's almost like
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the side of the stage. And to me, I was just like, you know what, I don't think I could buy like top end televisions, because I'm afraid of losing that illusion of magic in television. And so it's funny with, like I said, there's the flip side of seeing those kind of behind the scene things, or hearing the funny things, versus the reality of how things can be filmed,
I've
and
had
that
a
it still
similar
takes
thought,
away.
by the way. I've
Mhm.
seen something so well done that it was too much, and it kind of takes me out of it. I'm like, I feel like I'm in the living room with these guys. And
Yeah.
probably about a month or so ago, I remember having the thought, like, are they going to have to put a cap on the technology, because it's going to take people out of the fact that they're like, you don't want to keep getting better, because like you said, it feels like you're in the room with them, watching them do
Yeah.
it.
And that alone would be cool if you're actually having a conversation with the person. But if
Right.
you're just sitting
Right.
and watching someone behind a pane of glass, like, that's kind of weird and creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. Or maybe it's just, maybe, Gen Z or their kids will be fine with it. But I think we grew up with a clear difference watching people on squares, and it slowly changed over time, that maybe it's just weird for us. Like maybe it's
Yeah.
just, this is a couple old grandpas going, yeah,
Yeah.
it works too good for me.
Yeah.
Doesn't work unless
Television's
it's
too
flickering.
clear.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
kids
God,
and
I've
your
turned into
perfect.
Abe Simpsons.
What? Yeah.
I said, oh my God, I've turned into Abe Simpson after all this
Yeah.
time. Turn it up.
That's pretty good Abe Simpson.
Yeah. Oh, too much Simpson over as the childhood. I think I used to know like 50 characters' voices at one point. And I
Wow.
had to stop. So when it became infecting my life, and you'd be walking along or driving, and you'd be looking at signs and like pretending you're Hans Moleman, and PQ question mark smiley face.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah, that can
always
take
fun
over.
the first time around, but people get
Are
tired
these
of
some
it.
of the things your wife would look at you and be like, shut up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, stuff like that. So, but I mean, at the same time, I have to give her some credit because she gets really pissed that I can remember stuff from like a 30-year-old Simpsons episode, but I can't remember to go pick up the groceries, or I can't remember to change the laundry over. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
that
like,
it's that selective memory that we all have.
yeah, I try to explain to her. I'm like, it's because I have absolutely no interest in doing the laundry. So, and if I do it bad enough, you'll just do it. So, yeah. But yeah. By the way, guys, that's the cue. If you ever want to like not have to do something, just do it really, really bad until they get pissed with you and just do it themselves. So
The views expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of David C. Smalley. So
yeah.
staying out of that
Disclaimer.
one.
Should have thrown that one in at the beginning. For sure. So yeah, between the television show and of course your touring and comedy, I mean, you obviously have been keeping busy. If you found that COVID kind of hampered you at all, or are you kind of
Well, I was fortunate enough to, I mean, the acting and stand-up comedy is so sporadic, as far as money goes. You'll have a big, payday or a big show or a big weekend in a club. You'll make a lot of money, but then you may not get booked on another big weekend like that for months. We filmed the Nickelodeon show last November, and I haven't been back on network TV in a year. So you'll get a big paycheck and then the money runs out. So when they say starving artist, that's kind of what they're referring to. Is you may sell one painting for $20,000 and then
you never know the next.
And then if you don't sell another one that year, congratulations, you're making minimum wage. I mean, it's not,
but you did it all in one day.
Yeah, it sounds great, and people are envious of you in the moment, but you're like, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of terrifying, So I'm fortunate enough that the podcast has actually been my full-time job since 2013. So my patrons really were the saving grace for me. Being able to just put content out from home during COVID. I did take a hit, because they had jobs and lost those jobs and went on unemployment. And when you have to sit down with your spouse and go, let's cut out the unnecessary expenses, I think supporting David C. Smalley's podcast was probably at the top of the list to get cut. Yep. It would be in my home, I know for sure.
Yeah.
So a lot of people stuck around with me, but also there was a shift in how downloads were counted. There was a shift in how many, like a duplicate download, no longer adding value, which I'm sure you probably know, with IAB and this whole new way of counting, which is absolute horseshit, by the way, because
I 100% agree.
Because I think most people in this industry know that it takes 7 times of hearing an ad for the average person to take an action on it, which means each one of those 7 has a specific value, right? One could even argue that the second time they hear it, it's more valuable than the first because they're one step closer to making an action on that item.
That's right.
So the way these new downloads are counted, when you hear it once, that's fine. I get paid for it. But if you download it again or play it again, I get 0 for that now. So, my advertising revenue dropped by about 90% when IAB implemented their new system. So they're my least favorite people on the planet. And I think there's a case to be made that we could fight this, but I'll talk to you about that offline. I think that there's a class action thing, to be honest with you. I think that we are putting value into products and we're not getting compensated for that value. So I think there's an issue there.
Yeah.
But aside from that, the Patreon, without my Patreon supporters, there's no way I would have made it through COVID. I mean, I kept putting out the content, and the people who stuck around absolutely made it possible for me to keep doing what I was doing from home. I was doing interviews like this. I was doing stuff over Skype. I was, I'm a skeptic comedian, who has his own podcast. So I talk with, fundamentalist pastors, Christians, preachers. I talk to people who are crystal healers or Reiki healers or psychics or claim to have special powers in some way. I ask them for evidence. I let them try their stuff out on me. I go along with it, and then I challenge why they believe what they believe. And I try to keep it lighthearted. It's not always as funny as I would like it to be because I don't want to just shit on the person and make them feel terrible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I try to lighten it up and be like, hey, sometimes we're going to laugh about this because this is absolutely insane what you're saying to me right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
my Patreon subscribers absolutely saved my ass for COVID. Yeah.
So I have to laugh right now just because, so you're talking about Reiki. And so my wife and I decided that we were going to take a little time away. It was supposed to be like a 3-day thing. And by the time you travel and, you know, you get to your destination, you travel back. It turns out we had 24 hours to spend with each other, which was fantastic. We went up to Blue Mountain and, you know, we did hiking and we decided that we were going to go to a spa. And we're like, hey, you know, well, let's go get a couples massage. Now, we couldn't get into the really beautiful hot stone kind of ancient looking spa that was supposed to be like the top in the area. And so we went to the next oldest spa. And when we originally were booking it, we said, hey, could we get a couple EMTs? You know, because we get to claim some of that back through insurance, but B, because we both have some physical ails that it's kind of nice to have that proper as opposed to just the relaxing massage. So anyways, they said, no, well, unfortunately, our EMTs, they don't do couples massages. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, can we just have like one EMT and then like they can just like work on my wife or something? They're like, no, they don't do couples massages. I'm like, well, that's the fucking weirdest thing ever, but okay. Okay, so we'll just get a couples relaxation massage. So we get in there and this guy comes in and we're lying down and he decides to make a joke. He's like, hey, when they're face down, you can't tell which one's which. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, first of all, this guy's got back hair. So
Whoa.
That's clearly a choice that is not my wife. So that instantly I'm kind of grimacing face down on this thing. And then he's talking about how he is not the average masseuse, that he is actually a Reiki that goes and heals people. And I'm just like, and I'm lying down there thinking, wait a minute. This is a guy who's taken a profession that requires touching people, but he's Reiki, so he actually doesn't touch people. Yep. So instantly, I'm kind of laughing because this is my wife has this guy, and I'm just thinking, so she's got a goddamn wizard over here who's going to somehow massage her without touching, and it turned out to be. So I'm getting my massage and it's kind of quiet and he's kind of chatting and it's really funny because I'm laughing thinking, oh my God, my wife fucking hates people talking to her while she's having massage. So already your tits going down, my friend. So I'm having massage and the woman who's massaging me is kind of this. So both of them were old. Like I've never seen masseuses that were this old, but I was just like, okay, whatever. And I've never had actually a relaxation massage in my life. I've always had the EMT physio kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So this person
is kind of the medical focus.
Yeah. So this woman is like patting me and like caressing me, not massaging me, and I'm like kind of getting a little weirded out. And then she like reaches below the equator and kind of like grabs my butt, and then of course I'm lying there thinking, this is feeling a little more molesty than massagey. So when this is all done, they leave. I sit up. My wife sits up. She looks at me and she's like, how was your massage? And I said, it was kind of molesty. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm just like, well, I try to explain, but we're trying to be quiet because we know they're just outside the door. She goes, right. I don't know what the fuck happened, but this guy, he's like poking me. And shaking my body. And oh, that's right. At one point he says, if you feel electric shocks or energy coming from me, I can't turn that off. And I'm like, trying not to laugh. And then she's like, that is the worst massage I've had in my life. If anything, I think I actually feel worse. I said, you know what you should do? You should step out and be and then be like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. What did you do to me? You know. So we the whole day we were just shell shocked. We were kind of walking around quietly. We'd look at each other. We both felt like we were kind of abused. And we're like, we don't know what happened. So Reiki, that's where that all came from. And I was just like, this is the weirdest sensation.
Anytime someone wants to do something like that, they're like, I'm going to massage you, but without actually working the muscles. I just always want to be like, I'm going to pay you without actually giving you money.
That's exactly
I want us to sit in a room and just meditate on what it would feel like to be empowered. And that's going to be my compensation to you, is a transfer of energy.
Yep.
Why not?
Yep. That's the best transaction ever. I love that.
What it's worth anyway.
Yep. Yeah. So it was really, really weird. So I don't know how people do this. I don't even know how people have professions like this. I know there are a lot of people out there who say, yeah, it's a real thing. And yeah, it feels fantastic. I feel like those people might have some other underlying issues if that's the case. So
I don't know how many of them believe it versus how many of them are intentionally just taking advantage of people. Like, right? I think the vast majority are taking advantage. Like, I don't think they actually believe they're doing anything. Some of them do. Some of them are that insane that they think like their magical powers are going through. I've had massage therapists doing an actual massage start doing weird noises. Like there's one woman started like sucking as she was like what? She's like pulling down my back. She's like got her hands. This is gonna be bad for the audio listeners, but she has her hands like fingers interlaced, thumbs up, and then the sides of her palms down on my back. And she's pulling from like my shoulders down towards my butt, but she's pushing hard. And I hear her going, and then she would let go, and I would just hear, and at one point I turn around and I see her like she's blowing out demons, like. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just taking your bad energy into my body and expelling it. I'm like, you're fucking insane.
So like, 1 second, I got some bad energy. I had a couple burritos earlier. 1 second.
Yeah, let me give you. If it starts smelling bad, I can't stop that. I just want you to know. I can't stop that energy. Yeah, it's some of them who are actually in that field do believe that they're doing some sort of mystical energy transfer. So sure, there's got to be some that believe it, but eventually, I mean, there are claims they'll claim to cure cancer.
Yeah,
they'll claim, and what's sad then, and where I start getting actually pissed off, and what inspires me to start covering this shit on my show, is when they're making these claims, and there are people that are low income or don't have access to insurance or whatever, and they're spending $180 on a Reiki session or an audio or an audible therapy session or a psychic reading or some kind of expulsion of demons or exorcism, instead of going to an actual doctor or looking at treatment programs that they can afford or something. That's where I start getting pissed. And I think these people have to know at some point that they're not actually.
I feel like they're just preying on the desperate then at that point. And that's where it becomes a problem. Right. So it's really strange. And you know what? It's funny though, because you just can't make that shit up. People are out there, they truly believe it. But I feel like if that's something you love or that's something you want to do and you truly believe it, then only work on people who also believe it and then share that magical moment or whatever you plan on doing. But don't come up to us norm people and start like trying to pass your weird seed energy into
I talk about that stuff in my comedy too. I talk about astrology. I don't know if you saw those clips out there, but it's this. I've had the same conversation over and over with these folks. They just go, no matter what's happening, the same thing. There's always one. You'll be talking to them and they'll go, wait, what's your sign? As if they've thought something and they've got something in mind. And no matter what sign you say, they say the same thing. I knew it. No, you didn't. You didn't know my sign. And then they just start giving you all kinds of extra advice about it. And you're just like, and they start telling you to keep an amethyst in your left pocket. Mercury is in retrograde. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, this is the dumbest thing. Typically what I'll do rather than saying shut up is, how do you know that? What's your evidence for that? How can you back that up with science? And immediately they see where I'm going and they're like, oh, you're just not a believer. You just have to believe. Like, we did a test one time on my podcast where this woman claimed that she could feel the energy from crystals. So what I did was, with her permission, blindfolded her and touched her with certain crystals that she brought.
Okay.
To see if she could tell us which crystal was which, or which ones had the most energy.
Yeah.
And so she, at one point, we were putting it in her hand and she was holding it. I was like, she was feeling it. She could tell what shape it was. That's not going to work. So I was like, can we put it on the back of your hand? And she's like, I think my arm would be better. So she rolls up her sleeve, right? And we were touching her with her own crystals and various objects in the room to see if she could tell us which had the most energy. And then at one point we had her hold her hands out flat and we would just lay the crystals in her hands. 70% of the time she was wrong. And it turns out the most powerful crystal known to man that she felt the most energy from was literally a plastic bottle cap from a water bottle.
The earth was screaming.
She was like, oh, that's huge. That's big. And I know what it was. She had bragged beforehand that her smallest crystal was the most powerful. It was this little bitty orange thing. I think it actually was an amethyst or something. It was a little bitty orange crystal, tiny. You can even barely feel it in your hand. So when we dropped this bottle cap in her hand, she was convinced that we had put the tiny crystal in her hand and wanted to save face and say, this was the most powerful thing. And it turned out to be a bottle cap. I mean, it's horseshit.
Did you call her out and be like, it was the bottle cap?
Yes. Yes, and all she did was all she said at that point was, well, I think, you know, the universe knew we were being tested, and so they're not really going to work the same way. And maybe I need to charge them a little more. I should leave them out for 3 days instead of 1 day. Because she set them out overnight the night before to let them charge both in the sun and the moon, so they would be charged up and ready to go like an iPhone. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, she just
like plug my crystals in. So,
what's that?
I like to plug my crystals in.
Yeah, just get them right from the source. Yeah.
Right. Oh
I just wish people wouldn't. I mean, look, if you want to have them because they're pretty, or you want to have them because they're passed down, or because they have some sort of meaning to you, fine. But but there are literally people that will not go to a job interview unless they have a certain kind of crystal in their shirt pocket or a crystal around their neck to protect them from bad thoughts. I mean, it's just insane. There's zero science to back this up, and it's just it's sad that they do it, but it's funny when they try to rope you in and you call bullshit on it. And that's what I talk about in my stand-up.
So that's funny. Sorry, I was just looking over to the side here because I'm a huge nerd, right? So I'm thinking, oh, crystals. And as soon as I hear crystals, I instantly think lightsabers, you know, like the kyber crystal out of a lightsaber. So I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't mind walking around with a handful of those suckers and just being like nerding out with people. But then I get that look again, right? So, but, you know, if anything, that would have been really fun to drop in her hand and see what you said. And be like, I knew it. The force is strong with this one. So
now I want to think of ways to mess with them.
Yeah, like, I mean, if anything, you know what you should do is you should get one of those little pocket like vibrators or something and like drop it in her hand. It's just like, she's like, oh my god, this one's supercharged.
No, I mean your idea of your wife telling the guy he got her pregnant, like making them think their superpowers, like took a left turn somewhere and did something bad to you. You know, like you. I don't know, like somehow make a burn mark on your hand after you hold their crystal and be like, oh my god, was that an amethyst? Holy shit. You know, and just like lose your mind.
Start turning into a vampire.
You're responsible. Like, I'm suing you for, you know.
That's exactly it. You know, I thought that would actually be absolutely hilarious to just be like, I came in here and I was 110 pounds. Look at me now.
What is it? Who was that? I think it was Zach Galifianakis that said he wanted to. He either said he did or he did this in real life. I don't remember if it was just a joke or if he said he did it. But something about going and getting baptized, but having both pockets filled with Alka-Seltzer.
Oh my
water
God.
starts bubbling around you, just like roll your eyes in back of your head and start convulsing because you're in holy water.
Oh my god,
that'd be great.
I'd love that. All right, so we got a little part of our show here called our slightly slower than average rapid fire questions, where I've just got 20 quick questions, and there's no right or wrong to these. They're just more of ways to let our audience get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
All right, so first question. What made-up word would you register into the English language?
Skadoosh.
Skadoosh. I like that one, actually. I use that a lot.
I use it all the time.
Yeah. What's the scariest dream you've ever had?
Scariest dream I've ever had. I was in my living room and a car, my daughter was probably 4 at the time, and I was laying on the couch and a car smashed through. This is a dream. A car smashed through my living room, and I reached out to grab my daughter and I couldn't get her in time. And she was ran over by a car. I have no clue what spawned that dream, but it was terrifying.
That's intense. Yeah, I would probably like wake up in a sweat if that was the.
I think I probably did. Yeah, it messed me up for quite a while.
Yeah. What superpower do you wish you could have?
Oh man, I think invisibility is too creepy. Anybody who says that never has good intentions.
It's true.
So that is not mine. I would probably say time travel. I think time travel.
Yeah, okay, that's a cool one. I like that.
Time travel, I think, would be better than like flying or anything. Flying would be fun and convenient, but once you got used to it, I don't know. I think time travel, you could have more of a positive impact on humanity.
You know, the thing about flying for me is you're guaranteed to get too many bugs in your face. You know, they never talk about that, but I mean, you can always go up so much and you're going to get crapped on or something. So it's
and you're not going to perfect it. I mean, you fall when you walk, so you're going to bump into shit. You're going to run into things. You're going to your foot's going to catch on a power line. Like it's a lot of dangers involved with actually flying. So
that's right.
I think it would be more like Hancock. We would be bouncing off of shit, going through billboards, bumping into buses.
That was more realistic. Yeah.
Right? So you'd also have to have like super strength and other things along with it. And if you only get one, your fragile, frail ass just floating around in the sky is not going to be a good combo.
Well, so just imagine the landing itself, right? I mean, that would rule out flying right there alone, because I'm just like, I would come down and die. It was great for 30 seconds. I was up there.
One time of coming in too hot and you're screwed.
That's right. There's a video out there. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it's a comedy sketch where you were allowed to pick one mutant power, but you had to pay for it, right? And these two guys were like, oh yeah, we want to be Wolverine. And the scientist is like, whoa, that's 2 powers. They're like, what? He's like, well, you can either have the adamantium unbreakable skeleton, or you can have healing. And they're like, the skeleton. So they go with it. And then, of course, the claws come out. And every time the claws come out, they're like, it won't stop bleeding. It's really funny. You should look it up. It's really great. What's your earliest childhood memory?
Wow. The earliest childhood memory is me telling a joke. I think I was 4, and my mom had some friends over. I've never told this to anyone. My mom had some friends over. They were all women, and I was doing something. I don't recall what I was doing, but I was in the linen closet, and I pulled out this old, like tattered, like wash rag type thing, and I ran out in the middle of the living room, and I threw it on the ground. And I jumped on it with both feet, and I went, hey, look, I'm on the rag. And it killed. Like it killed. So I've been chasing that high ever since, man.
I'm glad that you weren't like, so I remember coming out of my mom's womb and I was just like, oh Jesus, there's only bad jokes that go from here.
No. I'm trying to answer you with as realistically as possible.
No, that's fantastic. I know that, you know what? I've known a few people that I've talked to that actually they remember being born.
That's impossible.
And I was just like, I don't think that's possible. They're like, no, I remember it. And I'm just like, how horrifying.
You don't develop the ability to retain memory until about the age of 3 or so.
Yeah.
So
So I don't know. I mean, there's. I'll always give the option that like there might be something weird out there, but that's just I don't know. So maybe they just remember too many movies about being born.
There's always an anomaly, but I don't even if the brain matter isn't formed yet. I don't know how that could even happen. But
yeah, so I came out with like 2 brains. But what makes you happiest?
Wow, my daughter, um, performing.
Right.
I've often said, like, when my daughter is at a show,
Mm.
like, even if I don't do as well as I want to, it's always one of the best nights of my life. Being on stage, I'm more comfortable on stage than I am in like a crowded, like a doctor's office or something. Like,
Mm.
people talk about this fear of public speaking, and it's almost like I have the opposite. Like, I have a fear of not public speaking. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if I go to a show and I don't get to go on stage and I'm just an audience member, that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. So being on stage, performing, bringing joy to people, and being able to have my daughter be a part of that would be the combination that
Very
makes me
cool.
happiest.
Yeah, that's awesome. What foreign language would you like to learn?
Spanish. I would like to finish learning it. I took 3 years in school and I got partially fluent for a while,
Okay.
and then I've forgotten a lot of it. And so I think it's very likely the most widely spoken language in the world. So I'd probably go with that. I grew up in Texas. I live in Los Angeles now. It'd be a lot easier if I knew Spanish.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I feel like I would like to learn how to ask where the bathroom is in every language. I think it's going to be a life goal because I feel like I don't know if it's like one of those things that I was a kid that I always needed to know where the bathroom was the moment I'd get to somewhere. I don't seem to worry about that now as an adult, but it's like always in the back of my head that like whatever country I want to be able to know, like, man, where's the
Listen,
bathroom?
hardly anyone else calls it the bathroom. It's toilet everywhere else,
Yeah.
So just learn the word toilet. Like, even in English, I think in most cases that'll probably, you just go toilet, will be like,
Yeah.
American.
That's fair. Yep. All right. So if you could live in any decade, and not doesn't have to be one you've personally experienced, what decade would you like to live in?
The one right after I die.
Just go a little longer.
Yeah. Just extend it 10 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not a
funny.
fan of the past. People are always like, "Oh, I'm a person of the 40s. I was born in the wrong generation." All right, good luck with diphtheria and all the other crap that killed people. Like, screw that.
Yeah, it's true. I always think
expectancy of 56 and cigarettes everywhere. Okay, like
Yeah.
people smoking on airplanes. All right. I mean, I don't know. There are definitely times I would like to travel to. Hence, back to my superpower question. I'd love to be there when Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball were creating the first, sitcom and setting up the first ever 3-camera shoot and watching that magic come together. Oh, I'd love to be there for that, but I wouldn't want to wouldn't want to live there.
Right.
Like, what is that, Eisenhower? And no thanks.
War and all that other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can tell you a few years I'd like to skip, roughly 2016 to 2020. That'd be that little hiccup in American history. But yeah, a future. I think it's going to keep getting better. I really hope it does.
Me too. Yeah. And that's really funny because I've always said, I would love to, of course, being a sci-fi nerd and stuff like that, the future is everything you dream of. My only worry is that if I could time travel and I got to the future and I was just like, it's just nothing. You're floating in this void. And you're like, oh shit, I better get back. Something really bad happens.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, it might be headed that way. It might be headed that way.
Just chunks of Earth like floating around you. You're like, oh, back it up.
Oh, a little too far.
That's right.
You're like, oh shit, I only went to December. What the hell happened?
Exactly. Oh man. Here's a good one for the men out there. Do you like the toilet paper flap over or under?
Over.
Over.
But I do want to offer a bit of controversial information to this debate.
All right.
As someone who deals with skepticism and controversy quite often, I do have to be honest about something. The argument typically is that the patent shows the toilet paper going on the front, which is what most, I think, normal people do. But if you look through the patent, the original designs were the opposite. They actually did come out through the bottom. And the reason was that the weight of that, it being on the back, made it easier to tear. As to where when it hangs off the front and you pull it, a lot of times you
just
get
keeps
more
coming.
than you expected. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of science behind it being easier to tear if it's got the entire roll in front of it. So there could be something there. So I am open to changing my mind, and I've even thought about switching it just to see if it's actually easier and if less toilet paper gets used from like an economic standpoint, especially during the COVID
you should
situation.
calculate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's men need to know,
some
right?
studies around this. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, I keep telling people, like, for me, because I used to have cats, they'd always play with the toilet paper. So if it was over, it would roll and spool down onto the ground. But it was under, then they were just rolling it up for me. So it was fantastic.
It would just spin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But I think I'd be willing to see the information on that, because if you do it over, and I have a solid argument to tell my wife, no, you're actually wasting toilet paper that way.
Yeah.
Because she's a woman of numbers, right? So if I don't have the empirical evidence to prove, then she's not going to believe me, and it's never going to change. So you know what?
It's worth looking into. I've always been in the front camp where it comes out the front and hangs over. And just probably in the last 6 months or so, I ended up researching something as part of an argument, and I found that, and it stopped me in my tracks for a minute. And I was like, wait, there's a reason behind this. Maybe we need to look into it. And then, of course, I probably watched an episode of SpongeBob and forgot all about it until this very moment. So I appreciate you talking to me. When I'm done here, I'm going to go into my bathroom and turn it around and give it a shot for a week just to see how the other side lives.
You'll have to follow up and drop me a message and let me know how that works.
Yeah, we'll be talking about toilet paper very soon.
Yeah, for sure. What's the first movie you watched that made you cry?
I cry a lot in movies. Usually it's over stupid shit too. Like I never cry when everybody else is crying.
Mm-hmm.
God, the first one? I don't know when The Pianist was released, but when you said that, that's the one that came to mind.
That's one comes to mind. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's about Nazi Germany, and I'll tell you the moment that made me cry, because this always stands out to me, because it's not a time when anybody else I've ever talked to ever got emotional during the movie. There's a time where, and if you haven't seen The Pianist, maybe you should stop listening or watching this right now.
It's been out long enough. There's spoilers. That, you know,
a little bit of a spoiler here.
Yeah,
but it's a small one though. There's a time where he's hiding. The main character is hiding in this warehouse or this giant building that the Nazis had already cleared out. And since they had passed it and cleared and searched for remaining Jews after bombing, he felt it was safe to go in there, which made sense. And he hid up in this loft or whatever. And he had like found a can of beans or something and was like trying to get it open. And it was like, he was clearly starving. He was very, very thin. He was wilting away. And there's this moment, I don't know if you know if you remember this or not, but this like Nazi commander, they're going through and doing another sweep that was unexpected. They go in the building. He's terrified. So he's hiding up in this loft, and the commander actually comes upon him and sees him. That should have been the end of it, right? Like, we found one, but the guy looks at him, and I don't know if he reaches into his coat or if he leaves and comes back or what, but he gets his lunch, his sandwich, the commander's sandwich, and he just quietly hands it to the Jewish man. And
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, that I was a mess because it was like this moment of like deep human connection. Like there's something bigger than us being on opposite sides of an issue or us attacking you and you running or good guys, bad guys. It was just human to human. You're hungry. And it was just this weird moment of human connection. And that got me. So it was several years ago. It was a very long time ago. And anytime someone brings up crying during movies, that's the thing I think of. So I don't know that sure that was the first, but that was definitely a moment.
That's a worthwhile one. Yeah. That's cool. Do you believe in aliens?
Oh, I believe it's way more likely than gods.
All right.
Likelihood. I don't say I believe in them. I will say there certainly seems to be evidence pointing to us not being alone. Just on sheer numbers.
Yeah.
I can't. My listeners have heard me talk about this probably the last 3 weeks, but I'm gonna say this sentence one more time for your viewers. You can fit 1 million Earths into our sun. Okay, think about that. 1 million of our Earths into our sun. There is a star that is so big you can fit 3.7 billion of our suns into it.
Wow.
And then there's another one recently discovered where 10 billion of our suns can fit into this star.
Really?
And I just think it takes me 23 hours to drive to my mom's house in Texas. We could be fleas on something's back. We are so tiny and insignificant from a universal perspective.
Yeah.
With the billions upon billions of galaxies and planets that are out there, I think it would be crazy if there was not other forms of life.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for there to be trillions of planets out there and only one has the right conditions for life. That just sounds absurd. So from aliens, if you mean that, absolutely, I do think there's something out there.
All right.
Little green men coming to Earth in spaceships, I don't know so much about, but certainly does seem like there's evidence for something.
Yeah. Okay, cool. One of our listeners, Mike, came in. Pianist was 2002 when that came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I'd have been 22 years old then.
Yeah.
I'm sure I cried at a movie before then.
Yeah. This also happens to be in that period when you stopped doing comedy and then redoing comedy. So maybe you were very emotional at that stage.
Maybe that movie broke me. Maybe that movie was like, "Hey, life's not funny. Get your shit together." There's Nazis out there giving sandwiches.
That's it. Sandwiches to eat.
There's bigger shit. Nazis are giving sandwiches to Jews. Get your shit together and figure out something. Make something of yourself.
That's right. How would you spend $100 million?
The very first thing that came to mind when you said that is I want to develop kind of a hotel style situation that because a hotel has almost every trade possible. You've got security, you've got customer service, you've got waiters and waitresses at the restaurants, you've got banquet personnel, you've got housekeeping, laundry, you've got maintenance, you've got executives, you've got supervisors, you have lawn care, landscaping, plumbing. You know what I mean? It's like a world all on its own.
Yeah, it's its own little ecosystem.
And we develop a massive hotel style situation that is self-sustaining to fix the homeless problem, where people come in, they get trained, they are working to pay for their room, as well as saving up money, but they're also learning a trade. So it's this massive center that's run like a hotel where the homeless people work there and are no longer homeless because they're also learning a trade just through experience. And after a certain amount of time throughout, as the program is built, they have a place to live, but now they have a trade and they can start applying for jobs outside of the center. And once they leave and graduate from the program and they move on, they've saved up money so they can get their own apartment. And now that fills a vacancy, or that creates a vacancy for someone else to come in off the street. I think probably 36,000 homeless just in Los Angeles. So a couple of those centers, I feel like we could churn through this pretty quickly. Of course, there would be drug testing, drug treatment programs, and then you've got drug treatment counselors that offers another job for that person. Yeah, and also allowed to be open for the public. I mean, you can come in, you can stay at this place, you can stay at this hotel, you can eat at the restaurants, and it's all going to be supervised by people that have experience in the trades. But the laborers who are working would actually be the people living there to make it happen. And so it can generate revenue in the community by serving the food, by buying the products, by having parts of the hotel for people to stay in, also for banquets, for large parties, things like that. So it can still generate revenue, but the labor cost will be down because you're trading out a place to stay in for their labor. So I think there's a way to work it, putting math to it and figuring it out. But I would definitely want to invest in something like that. I would love to develop the program down to the dime and then submit it to, say, Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos and be like, let's do this. Use LA as a testing ground. If it works, let's put one in every major city and do something about this homeless problem in the country.
Wow.
So
that's
very powerful thing for me.
That is probably the most brilliant and selfless thing I've actually heard anybody say on this show. So that's very, very cool. And already I'm like, fuck, I want to invest into this. But then of course, then the question comes out, it's like, okay, so then do you make money from this? And then what? Yeah, okay. There would be so many questions in that when it comes to the revenue end of things. But but even if you didn't and you were just humanitarian, giving this money away to create something, that's still even brilliant. Like, think about the amount of people out there who have more money than they need that could invest into something like this.
I mean, $100 million, and it wouldn't even take that. When you say $100 million, I don't think it would even take that amount. I think that that would just be a portion of it, so for someone who's got, what is it, 300 billion or something now that Elon Musk is up to? I mean, some of these dollar amounts are so insanely, astronomical that I just don't think it doesn't make sense that they're building rockets to go to space when people are literally starving to death. I mean, a guy, I live in Hollywood, and twice now the same man has taken an actual shit on my porch, like just a pile of human shit, and he stood up and peed and used my porch as his restroom. And your instinct is to go out there and kick him in his head, but when you look at him, his feet, are just complete, like solid black feet, like he'd been standing in charcoal. They're cracked, his lips are cracked, his hair is matted. He's freezing. He has no socks on. It's 54 degrees outside. I'm just like, how do you get mad at this? Like, what's he going to do? They take up the porta potties at night. They don't let people, like, there's nowhere for him to go. I don't want him shitting on my porch. I don't want him making my daughter uncomfortable. So I'm cleaning up the human shit going, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. If Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are racing to orbit space, come on, can we not put some brains together and figure out a self-sustaining homeless center that can hire the homeless to work there and produce goods for the community around them to generate revenue? I mean, there's got to be a better way.
I'm pretty sure those two are planning on conquering the space thing so they could just launch the homeless into space. So I don't necessarily see either of them necessarily wanting to tackle issues that truly make a difference in this world, but they seem to have a lot of money to make it to the moon. So I don't know. I mean, I know it's got to start somewhere, right? You want to eventually, Earth becomes overpopulated. You want to get off the planet. You want to move to other areas. Someone's got to create the means to do so. But we got a little bit more issues here on Earth that we could be dealing with first. But, so that's my 2 cents. Are you left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed. I was supposed to be left-handed. My dad wouldn't let me. I tried to be left-handed most of my early days, and he'd see me pick up a fork with my left hand, and he would jab me with his fork, and he would force me to be right-handed. And he'd always just say, "This world ain't made for left-handed people." And I gotta say, I'm kind of glad he did it. It sounds abusive, sounds terrible, but he was kind of right. And I'm kind of comfortable using both hands, and I'm a drummer too, so I feel kind of comfortable using both for a lot of things. So I'm kind of glad he did it. It's probably not the best parenting thing to do, but
let me tell you, as someone who's a left-handed person, the erasable pen was a nightmare for us lefties. because we just write and erase our own work as we're going across.
And pencil, wouldn't pencil also be an issue? Could you smear pencil?
Yeah, and then you get this massive like black lead patch on the bottom of your hand. It was a nightmare. Yeah, and unfortunately you can't write in marker, so it doesn't really go well.
It would have done the same thing with marker too. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad. Yeah, so better you than me.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, what gets on your nerves?
Stupid questions in interviews. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So I want people to look up misophonia. It's MYSOPHONIA, I believe, and maybe an MI. I don't remember, but it's the sounds of people eating. It's almost like a trigger that I can't ignore it. It's not just eating noises. It's typically like mouth or nose noises that like I'll have someone in studio, I'll be doing my podcast, and they'll be doing that breathe thing with like there's one booger in there that's causing a whistle, and they're going.
And you're like, I can't edit that out, right?
Stop. And there's a clip somewhere on the internet of me going, "Don't old man breathe into the microphone." Like I lose my shit. I can't ignore it. So yeah, when people are like, I was about to go on stage one time and I was at the back of the room and there was a guy that pulled a butterscotch thing out of his pocket. I don't know if they like intentionally create the loudest possible wrappers for these damn things, but it's some kind of hard, crunchy plastic. And he opens it and he puts it into his mouth and he's like clanking it back and forth between his teeth, one side to the other, one side to the other. And he's just crinkling the paper, just and I was like, I'm going to strangle him in the back of the room before anybody sees us. And then I can go up on stage a literal murderer, but at least there won't be that sound happening in the room. Like that, those sounds drive me crazy. If I hear people smacking or slurping or that shit, it's something I just can't look past. It drives me insane. My sister's the same way. And because we both share that, I started looking up, like, is there a thing for it? Turns out there's a thing for it. I think we have a mental disorder.
Yeah. So Mike actually just copied that up.
Like unreasonably enraged over mouth noises, essentially.
So our resident fact checker here, Mike, put up misophonia so that you could read. But what I find really interesting about the definition, at the very end, it says, smacking or breathing may cause intense anger and physical arousal.
I don't think they mean sexual. I think they mean like smashing your head into the wall for doing it is what brings the pleasure. Yeah, chewing, lip smacking, breathing.
Yes.
Basically, we don't like it when humans exist. How dare you fucking breathe, you piece of shit. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. That's great.
That's really funny.
But it'll also do it for like dinging noises. Like I have an air fryer. I don't know who invented this goddamn thing, but it has these long 5 beeps
at the end
when anything's ready. 5?
Yeah.
Everybody knows it's 3, and short beeps are fine. Boop, boop, boop. That's it. That's all anything needs. But 5 long ass dings. I get about halfway through the second one, I'm running toward the wall and like ripping the cord out of the wall. Going,
I do the same thing.
And that's the way you want to start eating pizza rolls, right?
That's
with a vein popping out of your head, screaming at you. So it's not just human noises, other stuff around the house.
Ones. Yeah. It's really funny because I think I've got that exact same air fryer. It drives me insane. And then the other thing, I never noticed this actually. So I reheated my coffee the other day and then I was doing a bunch of dishes and it beeped to let me know it was done. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But I kept washing dishes and then it beeped again later. And then it kept doing it until I opened the door. And that drove me insane. Like, I guess I don't know if I'm just like a fat gluttonous bastard, but it's like the moment it comes out of the microwave, I'm like standing there like, oh my God, it's going to be ready in a second. But this is the one time I was done and I let it sit and I'm like, this has got a reminder feature and it annoys me.
Yeah. I think the reminder, the reminder feature is probably a good idea. I'd like a little more time on it. Give me more than 60 seconds before you think I'm that stupid. Maybe if I haven't opened the door in 5 minutes, go, hey, you have coffee over here.
You know what I would like you to do? Start it up and rewarm it again. Don't tell me 5 minutes later that I got coffee and then I open it up and it's cold. Turn the fucker back on and warm up my coffee.
Wow, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
These long 5, but the long 5 beeps on the air fryer, there's zero room for that in my life.
No. Yeah.
I want one that'll just text me.
Yeah. Hey, it's ready.
It's ready.
Right?
I'll come get it.
Ready.
Yeah, but just in the corner like an asshole. No, bro. One of these days, you camp out in front of my apartment long enough, you're gonna see an air fryer fly out the window onto the street in Hollywood. I can't deal with it. It just drives me. And what's funny is my listeners are finding this out for me the first time, because I don't ever talk about stuff like this on my show. They write me all the time and go, "You were the most patient man," because they hear me in a 3-hour conversation with a fundamentalist pastor, and I'm going, "Oh, you want to take all of the gay people and throw them over a concrete wall? Let's talk about how that might hurt people's feelings," right? And I don't just trash them, and I just let people get away with things. And I wait and I go, "I understand that's how you feel, but the science says this. How do you reconcile this with this?" And then they say something crazy, and I go, "Yeah, I get that. However, what I asked you about was this." And people are like, "You were the most patient man." And now they've got this vision of them in my head looking at an air fryer going, "Shut the fuck up," over 2 beeps. Like, I am not the patient person you think I am. I know that if I scream "shut the fuck up" at the preacher, the episode's going to be 7 minutes long and nobody's going to subscribe to that. So
let's just hope
motivation.
Let's hope that preacher is not frying like fries in the background.
Well, I'll tell you this, if the preacher was just beeping at me, if I asked him a question about the Bible and his response was, I would lose my fucking mind 100%. So I have a line, I have a line.
All right. Well, look at that. It only took an hour on the show for people to find out the real you. Oh, that's good. All right. I only have a couple more for you here.
Okay.
What's the last thing you did just for you?
Oh,
cooking dinner doesn't count.
I was actually just about to say I ordered DoorDash.
Because that's a necessity. Let's talk about something that you did just for you, not for someone else. This is this is me time. This is just for me.
Wow, I have a massage chair. It's a very small massage chair, and I love bowling. So typically after bowling, I don't know if you call it a necessity or not, my back, like, I'm a 2-handed bowler. I bowl a 16-pound ball. It's like, it takes a lot out of me, and I bowl for hours at a time, like from usually about 5 hours. And so I typically come home after bowling and just sit in the massage chair for like a half an hour. I was supposed to do it yesterday and I didn't. So I would guess like a week ago or so, the last time I bowled, I sat in my massage chair. That's all I can really think of, that it just feels nice to be in that massage chair. As far as like the me time thing, I work like constantly. I'm God, maybe I need some me time. I don't know.
See, you see why we asked this question.
Yeah, I'm either always booking a show, promoting a show, replying to a booker about the dates of a show, sending my avails or my availability into the different clubs, getting emails back as far as when they want me, how much time they want me to do. Like, there's so much that has to happen before I walk on stage. And then some will be like, "We need you to do 7 minutes." Some will say 12 minutes. Some will say, "We need you to do a clean 30 minutes." And so I'm always rearranging my set to like figure out, which parts I'm going to do. But I guess that's for me, it's for my career. It's what I want to do. But it's still work,
It's work. Yeah.
I don't have a lot of downtime. I guess bowling would be my one vice that I just love to do it,
Right.
So, but I do keep thinking, and I was talking about this last night because I bowl on Wednesdays. I was telling because I'm in a league, and I was telling the team that I'm on, I'm like, we need to do this on Tuesdays or maybe Mondays or something. I can't keep coming here on Wednesdays because Wednesday's a big comedy night. And even if I'm not performing, I need to be at the clubs, hanging out, talking to the bookers, talking to other comedians, and immersing myself into that world. I can't keep doing this on Wednesdays. At some point, my hobby is going to start hindering my career. So I don't know. I guess bowling. I'll stop rambling. Maybe I need to do more me time stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons why we ask people, because it's amazing how many celebrities we come across when we ask them this question and they just freeze because you stop, right? I mean, you're always worried about the daily hustle, the constantly going, the bookings, the films, but you got to stop. You got to do something for yourself every once in a while, or what are you doing it all for?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I feel like I'm doing it for someone else. I feel like I'm doing it for my daughter, or I feel like I'm doing it for, to show other people in small towns all over the country that you can get out of that broke ass situation. Like,
yeah,
I remember I was visiting my mom in, I guess, right before COVID in 2019. Last time I saw her, actually. I'm planning on going back in December, but I went to this Brahms. I don't know if you've heard of Brahms. It's a like a fast food / ice cream place, like burgers and ice cream and stuff. But it's typically in Texas and Oklahoma. Very, very small. Not very many locations. And there was this young girl working at this Brahms, and the one that I used to work when I was 16. And I remember they made you wear a fucking tie, like, to serve ice cream. It was the dumbest. It was so stupid. And I remember my manager was an asshole. Customer service is always hard. You're 16, so you really don't give a shit anyway. And they're busy. They're stressing out. And this girl looked so rattled, and she was upset. And you could just tell she was in a really bad mood. And she was trying so hard to hold it together. And it looked like she was like this far from either stabbing someone or walking out or breaking down crying. She was just on her edge. And I'm coming back to this place now, living in Hollywood and doing acting and doing comedy, knowing that if I had known that in 20 years, that's what I would be doing, I wouldn't take this shit so seriously, Yeah. And I didn't really know what to do without sounding like an asshole. So I grabbed my wallet and I saw that I had a $100 bill and a $20 bill and under my little clip. And so I pulled out the $100 bill. And I walked over to her and I was like, hey. And she just looks at me and it was all this hustle and bustle and everything. And I just said, hey, all this shit's temporary. She's like holding fries. She's like, what? And I was like, all of this shit, it's temporary. I just want you to know I used to work here. And I made it out alive and everything's going to be fine. And I slid her the $100 bill. And she picks up the $100 bill and just loses it. Like, she starts crying. And I think back, like, being 16 with $100, like, that was a fucking week's worth of work, at 16. And so she just had the biggest smile on her face, and she put the fries down. She came around, she gave me the biggest hug, and I was like, just have a great day. And she's like, thank you so much. Little things like that. What I did for her that day is what you just did for me, is what I'm trying to get at. It's just this moment of right in the middle of all the hustle and bustle going, hey, stop for a second. Take some time for yourself. It's gonna be fine. Yeah. I appreciate it. It's huge.
Yeah. Most welcome. All right. Well, I got three last questions for you.
Okay.
Are you an iPhone or an Android person?
iPhone.
All right. What do you do when you can't fall asleep?
I take drugs. Let me clarify. Melatonin.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've taken that a couple times, actually.
Not real drugs. I have a melatonin chewable every night. Go to bed.
Okay. I took melatonin and I think I had a weird reaction to it.
I did too.
Did you?
I did too at first. Yeah.
I did too. Did you break out in sweats or something, or?
Yeah, my heart raced. I felt really weird. I got shaky. Yeah, and then I waited a couple of months. I tried it again because I tried other things and nothing was working. I tried it again and it worked beautifully. This melatonin is not a sleeping pill. You're supposed to take it every single night for a period of time to help your body get on a better schedule, and then eventually you won't need it. That's the idea behind it, and so that helps me a lot.
Interesting. Oh. Yeah. Well, that would have just saved me a trip to the hospital, but all right, because I had one of those reactions, and I was
if you have another reaction, stop taking it. You know, I don't want to. I don't want to
no,
advise
it
you
was
to
the
do something
weirdest thing
bad.
ever. Yeah. So
Me
I
too.
all I
had
could
something
think
similar
of is
happen when I took Benadryl one time and had a similar reaction, and never took that again because it made my
yeah,
heart race and it made me shake and I felt weird, and I was like,
yeah,
never again. So
yeah. I had one of those moments, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm having a heart attack or what's going on, but like
yeah,
I was sweating to the point where it was like running off my body,
right. But
and
did you
my
break
hands
out
were
though?
shaking, and
Did you break out?
no, I didn't break out though.
So a pharmacist and a doctor have both told me if you don't actually break out, it's not a pure allergic reaction. So it
Okay.
could have been something, it could have been a food sensitivity issue. It could be something else in the melatonin, like
Hmm.
some sort of gelatin or some other,
The
component
adhesive or
that,
something. Yeah.
yeah, there could be something in there that had a reaction. So yeah,
Interesting.
just try it again and see.
All right, cool. Well, it's good to know that I wasn't crazy though, because I was trying to explain this to people, and they're just looking at me like, "No, that doesn't happen to me."
Oh no, it
So,
happened to me for sure. I took it
um,
I took a pill version that made me feel that way. The chewables have never made me feel that way.
okay, yeah. I will definitely keep a monitor on it though, for sure. I've been reluctant to take it again just in case, but
Yeah.
maybe I will try it. Yeah. What's the best thing you've ever eaten?
Oh man. Well, I'm vegan now. So when you say best, what does that mean? Does it mean best for the environment, best for my body, best tasting?
The best tasting. Like if you were to rave about something, what is the best thing you've ever eaten? You're like, oh, you got to try this.
God. You're not going to believe me. People aren't going to believe me. I love to cook.
Mhm.
I make these Beyond burgers that will blow your mind. They're I've come from Texas, so I love barbecue.
Yeah.
And these are basically like a barbecue cheeseburger,
Mhm.
thick patty, melted cheese, caramelized onions.
Mm,
It's phenomenal, and everything's 100% vegan. And that
really?
thing, people bite into it and just go, "How the fuck? Like, there's no way this is completely vegan." So I would say those burgers, and if not that, there is a pizza place in Hollywood called Cruisers,
Okay.
Cruzer, Cruiser Pizza, and they have a vegan buffalo chicken pizza that will blow your mind. And they've also got a barbecue pizza that's really good, really, really good, like a 9.9. But
Mhm.
this buffalo chicken pizza that's all vegan is it and it's even they even serve it with like a ranch that's also vegan. The
Wow.
combo is just fun, like it's ridiculously good. And I know people are like, "Oh, you're just trying to push vegan shit because you're vegan." I'm it try it and then
Yeah.
talk shit. That's all I'm gonna say. It'll blow your
Yeah,
mind.
no, that's cool. That's cool. Well, a shout out to Cruisers on that one.
Yeah.
You know what? I am not vegan. I think I've tried it a couple times. But you know, I'm always open to different food experiences, right? I mean, because I mean, if there's something I can eat that is potentially better for my body but still tastes just as good, that will take me away from a pack of bacon, then yeah, I'm pro. And in the
Yeah.
meantime, I often remember like when the Baconator came out from Wendy's, and I'm like, who the fuck needs 7 strips of bacon on a hamburger? And like within 30 seconds, I ordered a Baconator. Like I don't know, I don't even know what's wrong with me, but like
And
So
hey, don't fret. There are plenty of vegan foods that are terrible for you.
yeah,
You can still get as fat as you want. You can still have high cholesterol. Oreos are vegan.
hmm
Skittles are vegan. I eat
yeah.
Skittles. I eat Oreos. Like I still have junk food. I just don't eat anything that's now, it started because I have 29 food allergies.
Oh, geez.
So I kept getting sick after I was eating. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And I took this test and found all the things I had allergies or food sensitivities to. Mike, calm down. It's much better for your heart.
Yeah.
And by the way, I had at a restaurant one time, I had carrot bacon.
I've
You're
never heard
probably
of
all
this.
laughing and mocking me right now, but
Yeah.
you know what? Try it. Try it. It's thinly
Alright.
shaved carrots that's fried in avocado oil, and it's
Okay.
crispy and it's got bacon like flavor on it. It's
Okay. It's fried in bacon
pretty
grease.
incredible.
Yeah.
What?
I said it's fried in bacon grease.
yeah, no, not quite, but
Tastes
yeah,
like
I
it.
I what you're getting at. But no,
Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah.
There
You
are
know
some
what?
good
My
alternatives.
my wife has this it's like an epicure stuff that it's tea, but it tastes exactly like bacon. It's
Really?
again, it is completely vegan. It's a type of tea. It's like a smoked tea or something. It tastes exactly like bacon. So you can put it on eggs and it makes you taste like you're having bacon and eggs. And
Now
it's,
imagine doing a sliver, imagine doing like a shaved slice of carrot
yeah,
in really hot avocado oil for a couple of seconds on either side to make it
yeah,
crispy, and then having it steamed with
with that.
that tea, with that flavor to infuse that flavor into it. Imagine how much more you could eat of it and not feel like your heart is shutting down.
Right? Yeah. My
Something to
God,
think about.
I might try that. Excellent. Well, the last question I have for you is, of course, and this one's going to be a tricky one because you have your own podcast, but I'm going to say it anyways. What is your favorite podcast you've been on in the last 12 hours?
I actually did do my own show. No, in the last 12 hours, boy, you just really nailed that down. I know what you're trying to get me to say. And one of the most irritating things in the world is when someone tries to make me say something that I don't want to say.
It's okay.
So go fuck yourself. How about that?
Yeah. It's fair enough. We'll take it. Yeah, you know, it's we never expect always to be the first one on there, so it's always funny. But you know, we've just enjoyed having you on the show. Super love your comedy. Love chatting with you and learning a few things. And you know what? I mean, you've even taught me a few things on this episode that I didn't even know about. I mean, the fact that there's even a patent for toilet paper, I didn't even realize that was a thing. You know, so so I'm like now, fuck, I gotta go look up what this patent for toilet paper is.
Yeah.
So,
The initial image is gonna look like it's going this way, but keep
Over.
digging and you'll find out the science behind it, man.
yeah,
Really made me question everything. I thought I was solid, man.
well, it's definitely a new research, and I would definitely like to see if there's an economical standpoint behind that. So excellent, David. I couldn't thank you enough for being on the show. I'd love to circle back around with you maybe in the new year and have you back again. And in the meantime, we really I always say the we because I'm used to having Matty G here on the show with me. But that's another kettle of fish we'll talk about another day. And I thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, man. This has been a lot of fun. Almost every show I'm on, they make me talk about really, like, you know, they need to know my stance on the Dave Chappelle thing. They need to know my stance on the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. And I love getting into those things, but it's so nice to just sit and talk with someone about all these other things. And it's been really refreshing. So I appreciate it. And it's also going to let my listeners have a, you know, kind of a new insight into me as well, because they've never heard hardly any of the things we've talked about today. And a lot of my conversations can get repetitive. So thank you for doing that, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a blast.
Yeah, for 100%. Now, actually, before I do let you go, do you want to, of course, pitch your website, pitch your show? This is a good time to do that.
I'm David C. Smalley on everything. Literally. Okay. TikTok, Instagram. That's the name of the podcast. David C. Smalley. Smalley.
Excellent. Well, it has been a pleasure. And again, I look forward to having you again on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Have a great evening.